my first experiences with Delta was as a number 5. So in the teams, you've got the team leaders of 1, the assistant team leaders of 2, 3, 4, 5. You're supposed to have 5 guys on a team. And because I was a battle captain in the talk, running the talk, when I wasn't working that, troops invited me out to just be an assaulter. So I held ladders. I was in the stack. So in as I finished the operator training course, or even before I finished the operator training course, I worked as a Delta Force assaulter for a trip and really got to see the inside baseball of how it all worked. And again, I think that's a testament to the training, right? Like no Delta Force Sergeant Major is going to be like, "Hey, Major, why don't you come and get into a gunfight with us?" If they didn't know, I was up to speed because I had been through the exact same things that they had been through.
In your mind, what makes a great Delta Force assaulter operator compared to, like you're just saying, you're not going to be expected to be laying breach charges. So what makes a great assaulter versus a great officer? Like if you were evaluating, this is what makes an assaulter A+, this is what makes an officer A+, what would those characteristics be?
Wow, that's a good question. I think it's probably layered. So you have to know the tactics enough. You have to know what your guys can do and can't do, right? And this was interesting. There was a story I wanted to tell you that we're coming together with. So there was a mission that was, so these other things that we talked about. There are these guys you're trying to go after, and there are these guys that you're constantly telling the U.S. government, we need to get this guy, and here's why. And they're like, too dicey. Maybe it's in another country or whatever, And so these op plans, they travel between troops and squadrons. Just like, remember when Bo Bergdahl was kidnapped and held as a hostage, going to rescue Bo, that was constantly moving. There was always a troop that was responsible and staying up to speed on what are the conditions for us to go in and rescue Bo. That was one of those things, again, when it comes to the national will. It's like, hey, what's going to be the cost to go rescue this kid in Pakistan? And you're constantly having these discussions with the government on, hey, we think we can get him with these level of triggers, and those triggers just weren't met over and over and over. So there was this guy that we wanted to go after. He was running foreign fighters into Iraq, and the Bush administration finally said, "I've had enough. Go get this guy. Tell me how you're going to be able to do it, and tell me how you're going to be able to get away with it with me, the president, being able to deny that we ever did it." Right? Well, this op plan went and went and went and went and went and went. And then finally it lands on my plate. And, one of the requirements was it has to be deniable by the United States, and as an officer, I said, okay, President Bush said that last year. Is this still a requirement? Do we still need to develop an op plan that we can deny? Like, that's hard. That's really, really hard. So for weeks, I tried to push it through my chain of command until finally it gets in front of George Bush. It says, "Hey, boss, is this still a requirement?" And he was like, "Oh, no. I want this guy gone. I want to say a message. I want to go into this country, and I want to send a message. You do not harbor terrorists, in this country, and I've had enough." So that was a completely different set of conditions now, which made my job a lot easier. And one of the things I'll never forget, as I'm establishing these triggers, if this, it kept getting denied at the highest level. It's, it's too risky, because you certainly don't want to go into another country and miss the guy, right?
Right.
So one of the things that we thought of, and I don't remember if it was me or if it was the team that I was working with, we had this little line that said, "And there is no other viable intelligence that would make us think otherwise." So, and as soon as we added that line, the administration said, "Go." So it was one of those things, like trying to understand what is the reticence? What are people afraid of? What is the risk tolerance? You know what I mean? And how do I mitigate that risk? So I think I just arrived at the best answer. The officer is responsible to mitigate that risk. Part of that is knowing what your guys can and can't do, understanding what that risk truly is. Like if you fail on this mission, is it going to harm the reputation of the United States of America? That's okay. But then you mitigate that risk to make sure you don't fail on that mission. So I answered it as I was answering it. I think risk mitigation is the biggest thing that that the officer does, and that is not a passive thing. That is, you need to fight every fucking day you're in the Delta Force, and when we're at war, you need to be bringing it to our enemies every single day. So I think when people think about risk and think about risk mitigation, no, man. There's always a way to get past it. It's train harder, it's train better, get a new piece of kit, integrate this, find out that. And one of the things that I teach a lot of is in the military decision-making process, there's things we call facts and assumptions. And the job of the officer is to take things that are in the assumption file, on your list of assumptions, and try to move them over to facts. You get what I'm saying? So it's like, oh, we don't know if he's there. We think he's there. Okay. Well, confirm that he's there. So my job now isn't to go get him. My job is to get that thing out of the assumption pile into the facts pile. Yes, he's there. He's there right now. We've understood a pattern of life. We expect him to be there next Tuesday in this time window. You see how this is very, very different when someone goes, well, we just don't know where he is. Well, that's not risk mitigation. Find out where he is. Find out what his pattern is. Get one step ahead of him so he walks into your trap. And to me, you can see me getting excited, right? Because that is what the officer does, is you set those traps and you set those conditions. So when your guys come in, they win every time.
That is, again, I hate to say it's epic too many times, but that's great. But okay, so that makes perfect sense. You laid that out great for an officer. When you're now in your officer role and you're evaluating guys on the assault team, guys that are going to actually be laying the breach, shooting people in the face, whatever it might be, in your mind and your experience as Jeff Tiegs, what qualities are you looking for in the guys that are on the ground coming off the helos, whether it's the Baghdadi raid or whatever it is? What qualities do you want in those guys?
Yeah, man, there's a list and a list and a list, but I tell you, what the thing that keeps popping into my head is fearlessness. Like, they have to have zero fear. And once again, this isn't some how do you get to a place where you don't have fear? It's because you've done it and you've trained on it and you've perfected it, and the day you're doing it in combat, it's just like, in the Super Bowl. Do you think that quarterback on 4th and 10 that they decide to go for it, that he has fear? No, he has no fear. They've run the plays, he knows the plays, and he's focused on getting it done. And that's what I was always looking for in our team leaders. And you could see it build, right? Like, you'd get a new guy. So the new guys that came across the hall, they were confident and they were capable, but there was still that unknown. So I'm using fear and unknown almost kind of some respectively. And as they got integrated into the team and into the troop and into the squadron, that fear would go away. Even we were talking about SEALs a little bit. I had a rotation in Iraq where I had two Navy SEALs from SEAL Team 6 get integrated into us and work with us. Hugely capable dudes. I mean, absolutely capable guys. But there was a little bit of a reticence initially when we started. And my job and the team leader's job was to make them feel comfortable. And it's like, no, this is the way we do it, and that's okay. And I think part of that, when I'm talking about fear, is that freedom for them to make decisions. When that helicopter hit the ground and dudes started to assault, or that tailgate opened and dudes began to assault, they had to know whatever decisions they made, I was backing them. You know what I mean? So it isn't just fearlessness of the fight. it's the fearlessness of, look, I'm trained and people trust my decision making and whatever I go with. And that was one of the biggest things that I saw with when I worked with SEALs and they became integrated. They literally were like, oh, we can do this. And I'm like, yeah, if you think it's the right thing. Oh, hey, can I do this? It's like, hey, if you think it's the right thing, so it was, I don't know what their structure, I didn't work with them that much, but the Navy officer structure and NCO structure is crazy compared to the Army officer structure. So I think helping guys be confident in their own capabilities, and knowing that if something went wrong, man, I wasn't bringing out the blame Thor 5000 and blasting them in the face. That was something that we would eat together.
I'm so happy you said it. I interviewed 3 guys probably 2 years ago at this point, former Delta operators, and they said one of the best things about being in Delta is, when it comes time to pull the trigger, you're not going to get second guessed. And he's like,
Yeah.
if you're just, in some other random unit and anything goes wrong, you might hesitate because you don't want to get in trouble. You don't want your commanding officer to get in trouble. And they were like, if we decide it's time to start shooting, nobody is going to tell us don't do it, whatever it might be. And that is fascinating that you just brought up practically the exact same thing.